Lord Windgrace versus Will Kenrith, 2 Planeswalker commanders, and not a good hand for us. We're on the draw at least, so we can mulligan there, and we'll start with 7 hopefully. Yeah, it's going to be one of those games apparently. Let's mulligan again. Okay, actually getting some lands this time. We can ditch the Crater Hoof and the Gaia's Cradle there. Apparently Modo is desperate to draw us into lands that are of no use to us in the early game. But luckily no fast mana from our opponent will knock Summoning Sickness off of Dryad Arbor and pass the turn. Followed by no bounce either. I think we're looking for a Realms Uncharted to fix our mana. So let's just drop a Tiger and pass the turn. In fact, we can swing in here as well. But just in case our opponent has some kind of flash creature, I'm not going to bother swinging in. We really don't want to lose the Dryad Arbor as a land. Okay, again, just passing the turn, so it seems as though our opponent is after countering our stuff. Luckily, the Realms Uncharted is an instant, so if they do counter it, they're going to have to counter it on their own turn. Going for Thing in the Ice. And then it looks like they're passing the turn again with 2 mana held up. Let's go for this Realms Uncharted and see if it manages to resolve. That went straight through really quickly. So either our opponent was F6'd when they shouldn't have been, or they actually don't have counter magic. Let's go Command Tower, Urborg, a black and green fetch, and a black and red fetch, I think. Either way, we end up with 2 black here. So we can go for the Phyrexian Arena eventually, probably just casting Oracle next turn. They decide to give us the 2 fetches, which is fine. We've got Ramunap in hand, so we can play these out of the graveyard anyway. Let's go for the Verdant Catacombs first. And that can just be a Badlands, then we'll go in for the Oracle of Muldiah as well. Our opponent is holding up priority here, so I think they F6 through their own turn, with the assumption of countering something on our turn. And there we are, a mana drain, removing a counter from Thing in the Ice. So hopefully we can land Ramunap next turn, and we'll start getting out some of these lands from the graveyard. Making use of that mana to go in for the Caged Sun. And that will make their islands tap for 2 apiece. So they get down at 2 6-mana spells here. And they're not going to find Will Kenrith in the deck, but they can use that ability to shuffle if they know what cards are on top and they don't like them. A plus is until your next turn, up to 2 target creatures each have base power of 0/3 and lose all abilities. So that means that our Dryad Arbor cannot tap for mana anymore. We can go for... Yeah, I think we're best getting down Lord Windgrace while we can here. Then we can return up to 2 lands if we want to. I think I would rather draw a couple of cards. So let's get rid of the Bloodstained Mire, and we'll probably play Blood Crypt this turn. Yeah, I want to surprise my opponent if we're going to go for Gaia's Cradle. So let's just get the Shock Landing tapped and pass the turn over. Primal Amulet makes instants and sorceries cost 1 less. When it has 4 or more counters, it flips over into copying instants and sorceries. Oh, and then my favourite, Teferi, Temporal Archmage, comes into play. Untapping all the lands, so they basically got 10 mana's worth of stuff for free there. Now casting a Talent of the Telepath. Target opponent reveals the top 7. You can cast an instant or sorcery from that pile without paying the mana cost. If there are 2 or more instants and sorceries in your graveyard, then you can choose 2 instead. They'll get an instant or sorcery from us here. Alright, what have they got? They probably go for Vamp Tutor. Everything else is ramp. Yeah, they've got either Cultivate Nature's Law or Vamp Tutor. They might have card draw in hand. Vamp Tutor is what they go for. Now the question is, does our opponent have an instant or sorcery to get the last ice counter off of this? When it's transformed, return all non-horror creatures to their owner's hands, so that will bounce our Dryad Arbor. I thought this was actually non-permanents. Yeah, it's just creatures it bounces, so we're not actually too worried about that. Drawing to Prismatic Omen, that's strange, because I was actually just thinking of going for Demonic Tutor into the Valakut. Oh, Valakut's in the bin there. So in that case, let's see if we can get down Ramunap. Okay, Ramunap comes straight down. So let's play that. And then, how many mountains do we have? No, it's just a couple of fetches we're going to have to rely on here. So let's minus down on Lord Windgrace and we'll get a couple of fetches back. Looks like our opponent has F6 through the turn. We will crack and count the number of mountains we've got left. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we've got a couple of basics, haven't we? No, we do not have a couple of basics, so let's grab a basic mountain. And then we'll crack this. And go for the Cinderglade. That will trigger the Valakut. And we'll put some damage onto that Teferi. Then I think it's Demonic Tutor. And what else can we grab here? I think just an Exploration will do, because then we can make multiple land drops a turn. So as much as I'd like to go for Urborg here... Oh, actually, what we could do is go like that. Play the Prismatic Omen. And then any land we play will be a mountain, won't it? So let's go like that. And going for the Urborg as well. And we'll get the last damage onto that Teferi. And unfortunately, we're a mana short on going for Phyrexian Arena. So I think we're just going to have to pass there. Our opponent did tutor, so they might be able to refill their hand here. I think they drew some cards there. Yeah, they went for the -2. Target player draws 2 cards. Add instant and sorcery and Planeswalker spells that you cast cost 2 generic less. Oh, and that's a shame. They're going for... The target player takes some extra turns after this one with buyback. And that flips over the Horror, which bounces Ramunap back to the hand. So we're just going to have to sit through some extra turns here, I think. We get Rings of Brighthearth into play, along with a Thrumming Bird as well. Then a Solemn Simulacrum. 1 card left in hand, but they've got an extra turn after this. Then this is taking out Lord Windgrace. Minusing down on Kenrith. And they are going to put 2 into Rings of Brighthearth to copy the ability, so they'll draw 4. And their instants and sorceries will cost 4 generic less. So it's Factor Fiction for 1 mana. And that flips over the Primal Wellspring. We'll give them a Twin Cast and a Sapphire Medallion in 1 pile. I imagine they go for... No, I thought they'd go for Phyrexian Metamorph, copying the Caged Sun. Dropping a Mana Vault as well. They've got 5 cards in hand here. And they're going to copy an instant or sorcery. So they can just go for, Walk of the Aeons again and cast Twin Cast onto Walk of the Aeons. So that's 1 extra turn. 2 extra turn. I don't actually know how many extra turns that is. I think that was 2. Oh no, they get 3 extra turns, I think, because they get 2 from the Primal Wellspring and then another 1 from the Twin Cast. They didn't buy it back though, but I think that's 3 extra turns after this one. So I'm just going to allow our opponent to take all the extra turns that they need to draw this game to a close, and then I'll see you all at the end of the video most likely. Alright, just interjecting here very quickly, our opponent has a couple more extra turns after this, I think. All they have to do is swing in with Awoken Horror. I am going to tap out here to give my opponent the chance to actually just draw the game to a close. And there we are, they decide to swing in and take us out for the victory. So showing exactly what you can do with extra turn spells, and particularly things like Mana Drain. Mana Drain really helped our opponent do a hell of a lot that game, because it got them into the Caged Sun very early, and then they could tap out and go for Will Kenrith on the very same turn, and then thanks to all that mana they could go for Teferi, and I think it was this thing on the same turn. Yeah, 10 mana's worth of stuff in one turn, by turn 6 or 7 I think it was. So yeah, mono blue managing to accelerate into a victory there. Hopefully you all enjoyed this game. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.